questionable. B, there is no system, and we are going through a dynamic transition, so every opportunity is up for grabs, coupled with the first principle, first hypothesis, in tandem that is believed to leverage Turkey's fortunes enormously. A self-image, A, of the country, which is exceptionalist, B, of the party, which is exclusivist, D, a belief, an unflinching belief on Islamic transnationalism, and strangely and contrary to the rest of everything that I have said, an argument, an hypothesis of status quo being the prevalent name of the game for the coming 2 decades in the Middle East was what was guiding AKP's foreign policy approach. With the Arab Spring, all of those assumptions collapsed, and they were anyway not survivable in their current present form. And after that, what Turkey is left is AKP's foreign relations, in the first place because there was no Turkish foreign policy involved in most of what AKP was doing. The final note is that we are right now in Turkey in such an amazing period in which the foreign ministry's think tank, Center for Strategic Research, felt that it has to publish a work that is 2 years old by 2 academicians, pretty pro-government academicians, but the work itself is 2 years old, which is titled The Dictionary of the Conceptualizations of Turkish Foreign Policy. So right now, Turkish foreign policy is in such a stage that you cannot understand anything by just looking at it, but you really need the dictionary. For anyone who is really interested, the dictionary is on the Center for Strategic Studies website, and I'm stopping here.
Okay, 2 very provocative statements. I am going to give you 15 minutes for questions and answers, and I'm sorry about that, but this is, we have to be on top of our time schedule. So please, the floor is open. Pavel Demes. I'm going to collect a couple of questions and then have the speakers answer. Pavel.
Thank you. Pavel Demes, GMF. Wanted to do something rather unusual. I wanted to ask you, Ambassador, if you could comment on what you heard from Anas, because you are special envoy for broader than Egypt territory, and you focused, for some reason, your remarks on Egypt, surely the largest country, influential, and so on. But I would expect that if you heard what think tanker said about these myths and slogans, what we are hanging on, whether these are not poisoning our way of thinking and looking, when out of multiple countries we are constantly describing these 4 and developing. In a way, I tend to agree with him that we are a little bit stuck with ourselves, not so much that what's going on over there. So if you could comment on it, because also if Commissioner would be here, I would ask her as well. She's not about Syria, even if it is most disaster situation, but from her I also didn't hear too much about broader thinking of her activities, but rather focusing on probably what is on her mind from morning till evening because of disaster, what's going on in Syria, half children and so on. I do understand that, moreover since she's a woman, but from 2 of you, I heard about Syria and about Egypt, and I would like you to react on rather provocative statement by Anas, and probably by mine as well.
Any other question at this point? Yes, please.
I'm sorry for my influence. Throat, but my questions go to our distinguished guests from Libya and from Turkey. So it happened what happened during the Arab Spring so far. But how do you, I'm going to the Libyan guest, what is your envision, how it would end in 25, 30, 35 years? we have a situation, for instance, in Morocco or Algeria, which seems doesn't change. Situation in Libya or Tunisia, which changed. And in Egypt, which used to change but was stopped by a sort of military intervention. And another thing is Syria. But once again, how it would end? Because it's a very huge earthquake. It could change in many directions. And I would only compare it with the shaking in the Arab world after the end of the Ottoman Empire. Well, this is the question. And the second question to our Turkish guest. So the AK party rules now for many years. Maybe it would rule for 10 more or 20 more years. And it embeds, as you mentioned, into the society, on the practice in Turkey, in any field, many of its programs, so to say. But in some time, the opposition, like Republican People Party, could come, and it could start to eradicate such kind of practices which have been embedded by the AK, by the White Party, so to say. So what would happen after that? Do you think that could arise some kind of even more stronger Gezi movement, even kind of revolution? Thank you.
Okay, the crystal ball questions are always very good, but they don't save us much time. So I will ask you then to be very quick on that, please.
Justyna Porazińska, MFA of Poland. I have one question rather to the Commissioner Georgieva, but I think this is a broad question as well. What about more for more and less for less? We as Poland, we joined the efforts of the European Union and the member states as Bulgaria and launched some programs to assess the country with a broad experience in the democratization. So we started helping Tunisians. We prepared and implemented some programs for the administration, for the dealing with the past, for example. And now the question, because we have the political crisis in some of the countries, and so should we stop because the administration there's no progress in their activity? So should we stop dealing with the civil society or our NGOs? So what should we do? Because the more for more and less for less? Thank you.
I think we can also put this question into your area. A last one may be there from Morocco, and then we go back to answers.
I will speak in Arabic.
Sure. Hold on one second.
هي ملاحظة عامة. أعتقد أننا هنا كأكاديميين وناشطين علينا أن ننتبه للمصطلحات التي نستعملها. نتحدث جميعنا عن الربيع العربي بغض النظر عن هل هذا ربيع أم خريف، فهو ربيع ديمقراطي وليس ربيع عربي. من الذي عرب ثورات الشعوب؟ في البلدان التي حصلت فيها ثورات أو انتفاضات من أجل المزيد من الديمقراطية هناك عرب، لكن هناك أيضا أكراد، هناك أمازيغ. وما لم ننتبه لهذا التنوع العرقي والثقافي فليس هناك تحول ديمقراطي وليس هناك بناء ديمقراطي. علينا أن ننتبه جيدا لهذه لاستعمالنا للمصطلحات، لأن التنوع والتعدد هو أساس البناء الديمقراطي، وخاصة من طرف أشخاص يفترض أننا جميعا ناشطون وأكاديميون. فقط كانت هذه ملاحظة عامة. شكرا.
Khalaf, but quickly.
أيضا سأتكلم بالعربي. أنا خلف علي الخلف. أنا سؤالي فقط للضيف التركي. المعارضة التركية تتحدث عن أردوغان وكأنه جاء إلى الحكم بانقلاب عسكري. إذا كان أردوغان بهذا السوء وبرامجه بهذا السوء، لماذا لا تنجح المعارضة في إقصائه، خصوصا أن تركيا...
I'm sorry, there was no translation, so maybe if I can ask. Okay. No, I don't hear it. Sorry.
الآن هل هناك ترجمة الآن؟ أوكي. سؤالي للضيف التركي. تتحدث المعارضة التركية عندما يتحدثون عن أردوغان وحزب الحرية والعدالة، العدالة والتنمية آسف، وكأنه جاء إلى الحكم بانقلاب عسكري، بينما أردوغان وحزبه وصلوا إلى الانتخابات الحكومية والبرلمانية والرئاسية عبر صندوق اقتراع، وهي انتخابات يشهد العالم بنزاهتها. إذا كان أردوغان بهذا السوء وبرامجه سيئة، لماذا لم تنجح المعارضة حتى الآن في إقصائه عن السلطة أو في النجاح في الانتخابات؟ شكرا.
Okay, a lot of questions about democracy. I am very happy about this panel. This was the idea of it. So, Ambassador Leon.
Thank you. Well, first comment about what Mr. Gomati said. Look, we talk about myths and about realities. My role as a special representative is to work with the everyday reality and with precise situations and to provide precise answers. I'm not an academician. I was an academician in the past. The privilege of academicians is that they can think in a broader context. But for me, for my life, is more political. Is we have a situation and our answer is this one or that one. So we talked about EU diplomats' skepticism in Brussels about the Muslim Brothers as the one of the main responsibles in Europe. We were never skeptical. You cannot be. You have to deal, I insist, with reality. So I went to Egypt the week of the presidential elections when the result had to be agreed. And I assessed the results of the acts that were published by the Muslim Brothers, and I made very clear statements on behalf of the European Union. It's not very often that we do this kind of statements, but I said very clearly to in a press conference in Egypt, we have seen these acts and we believe that Mohamed Morsi is the legitimate winner of these elections. We were criticized by Shafiq's supporters, but it was very clear to us that these acts were correct and that no one should challenge the victory. Just 45 days after he took over in mid-November, we organized a task force in Cairo. Actually, Nikolai Mladenov was one of the EU ministers who was present in this task force in Cairo. 28 member states, institutions, the president of the European Investment Bank, the vice president of the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. Huge support from Europe for President Morsi, the first democratic president elected in Egypt. An overall amount, even in a time of crisis, of 5.5 billion euros for Egypt. Of course, most of it in concessional loans. The times in which Europe was able to work on grants is over, and now less grants, more loans. But anyway, a huge support from Europe. So no skepticism. And these are facts. I'm not talking about opinions or... No, we were there to do it. What happened next? This was mid-November. By the end of November, the judiciary in Egypt took a decision very negative to the overall process. I'm not arguing the legal basis of the decision. I'm sure the judge took a decision which legally made sense, but the decision was terrible for the process because it cancelled the Constituent Assembly and it started the constitutional crisis. What did President Morsi to answer to this movement? He also made a very awkward movement. Instead of rallying around him all the democratic parties to defend the constitution, he decided to be the lonely rider in defending the constitution, and he issued a decree in which he gave himself the legislative powers and he made himself immune to the judiciary. So in one decree, he demolished the democratic principles of separation of powers. That night, I talked to him, I talked to Morsi, and I told him, This is not acceptable. You